So what did the commission decide?
No decision's been made yet. Everybody presented their arguments and kind of went back and forth on some of the more minute details of what's issue advocacy, what's express advocacy, and that's where we left it. And really that's what it boils down to is if the commission decides that either of the ads involved express advocacy, then it's a contribution and then rules were probably violated. If they decided it was just issue advocacy, then no rules were violated, and we found a loophole where outside groups can spend what they want as long as you avoid the magic words.
What did you get a sense the commission was leaning?
At first, I feel like they were leaning sort of not finding probable cause. By the end, I think it's a little closer, and I think they realized that it's not just as simple as did she say vote for, did she say vote against. It really comes down to when you have an ad that says, for example, I'll fight Washington, D.C., and it ends with call me, and you're not a public official. I mean, if that's not advocating for your candidacy, what is it advocating for? So I think it's a much closer question than Ms. Rutledge wants to make it sound like.
So go over the loophole a little bit more for us in terms of if they don't find probable cause, if let's say they dismiss the case. Explain what does that mean to voters about this loophole.
In that case, then the salt shaker ad basically is going to provide a roadmap to sort of let these outside groups spend as much as they want, and as long as they stop short of basically saying the word vote, I mean, that's kind of what the magic words come down to. You can be as vague as you want as long as you're throwing out some sort of buzzword issues, and you end with, call me to tell me to fight Washington, then you're okay, and it doesn't matter how much money gets spent. You don't have to report it. It's not a contribution. The expenditure committee has to report it, but it doesn't affect the candidate one way or the other if they don't.
Well, and as I recall, when this was breaking, Ms. Rutledge pointed out a 6 or 7 year old AG's opinion,
Right,
pointing to a parallel case that gave her some cover, but I'm wondering if there's a little bit more nuance between that case and this one.
Yeah, I think there is. And for one thing, the advisory opinion from 2006 was it was a 501c4 nonprofit that did the expenditure. This RAGA group is a 527, so the law's a little different for them, just broadly speaking. But on top of that, the ad that was produced and relevant to the 2006 opinion didn't feature a candidate sitting down and reading a script that the group had actually written out for her with her own input. I mean, it's sort of apples to oranges. Just because some coordination on an issue is okay doesn't mean that, hey, let's script this and go rent out the local corkies and make an ad. It's still independent.
So what kind of questions did the commissioner ask you some questions in there?
They didn't ask me directly. I was allowed to sort of make the same arguments that I'm making here. Ms. Rutledge's attorneys brought an ad from a Michigan campaign for governor that they said made it clear that these were okay. The Michigan ad, though, was a candidate saying the sitting governor does X, call that governor and tell him not to do that because it hurts education. They were trying to draw a parallel. My point was simply, that's not the same thing. This is a candidate who's not a public official saying, I'll do this, call me and support my candidate. Well, call me, I'll do this, call me. That's totally different than the Michigan ad. And so it sort of became some inside baseball kind of arguing over what does independent mean, or what does express versus issue advocacy mean. So
Did they argue that an ad that ran in Michigan was relevant to Arkansas law?
yes, they were showing that these kinds of ads are okay, as if the two ads were A, the same, and B, that a Michigan ad is relevant to Arkansas. And the attorney for the commission pointed out correctly that Michigan's campaign finance laws are different than Arkansas. We don't know what the law is there. We don't even know if this ad was technically okay in Michigan.
Was there any overlap between the state law governing this and the federal laws governing this?
A little bit, just to the extent that some of the Ethics Commission's decisions are based on interpretation of Supreme Court decisions. So, like with that 2006 advisory opinion, the Supreme Court cases they based their analysis on have changed a little bit since then. So that's relevant, but federal law prohibits any kind of coordination. Arkansas law technically doesn't prohibit it, But Arkansas law does make it so that it can't be an independent expenditure if there's coordination.
How important do you think their decision is going to be for the future elections in Arkansas?
I think it's huge because I think, like I said, otherwise this is a roadmap to here's how you can get hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign advertising without having to report it, without being subject to any sort of contribution limits. I mean, I was jokingly saying earlier, just why even bother to fundraise? If you can get hundreds of thousands of dollars in TV ads, you know, why go shake hands and do anything? Just saturate the market. Be real careful, follow the roadmap, don't say the magic words, and you're good.